are up 10 to 16 cents. November up 14 at 8.48 per bushel. Soybeans hit some of their lowest levels in 10 years last week. That left the market open to a correction. While the trade dispute between the U.S. and China does continue to weigh on prices, those cheap prices are bringing in other customers and total export movement remains solid. Expectations for good demand from the domestic crushing sector also provided support. Weather conditions across the Midwest do remain relatively favorable for crop development, and that's tempering the advances. Corn futures, they were also correcting after last week's losses. September up 3 cents in early trade at $3.44 per bushel. However, aside from that chart-based buying, the underlying fundamentals remain a bit bearish for corn, with good Midwestern weather and increasing harvest pressure out of South America weighing on prices. Wheat futures, they're lower, taking back some of Friday's gains. The September contract in Chicago down 3 cents at $4.94 per bushel. Kansas City wheat down 2 cents in September at $4.89 per bushel. And Minneapolis September spring wheat, it's down 3 cents at $5.28 per bushel. Seasonal harvest pressure and a rising production estimate out of Argentina accounted for some of today's early weakness in wheat, but production issues in Russia and Europe, where production estimates are being revised lower, did remain somewhat supportive. That's a look at the ICE futures and U.S. markets for Monday morning, July 16th. In Winnipeg for Markets Farm, I'm Phil Franz Warkentin.
Your operation, the right equipment, big savings, and Butler Farm Equipment in Fort St. John. They're the perfect match. Buy now, and you can get 0% financing, cash back, and more on the complete line of New Holland tractors, hay and forage products, and material handling equipment. Stop by Butler Equipment in Fort St. John for details, because the Perfect Match sales event ends September 13th. For commercial use only, customer participation subject to credit qualification. CNH Industrial Capital Canada Ltd. approval. Standard terms, conditions, and restrictions apply. Down payment may be required.
The opinions expressed during this show do not represent those of this station. If you've missed any of this show, you can follow the podcast at Energeticcity.ca. Now, an in-depth look at the news and information shaping our community. This is Trev Talks with your host, Trevor Bolin.
Good morning and welcome back to Trev Talks for this Friday's episode. We've got an exciting episode, of course, coming up today. On the line with us right now, we have Byng Giraud. I think I got that right, Byng. But he is the VP of Corporate Affairs for Woodfibre LNG, the facility that, of course, was first out the gate as far as LNG goes in British Columbia, but one that hasn't been talked about lately. So, Byng, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on the show, Trevor.
So you were calling us from what is apparently a very, very busy site. I've been following you guys on Facebook. So for those of the folks that don't know, you're in the Squamish area. You have got the Woodfibre LNG, which, like as I mentioned, is one of the first projects that was really in the news or in the media as far as going ahead. Tell us a little bit, just kind of where you guys are at right now.
Well, right now we're sort of in the throes of wrapping up what would be called our EPC contract, our engineering, procurement, and construction contract. We're working with a company called KBR, some people might be familiar with, big engineering firm sort of out of Houston, Texas. We're trying to wrap that up. We've got a few policy issues we need to wrap up with the provincial and federal governments. But after that, we should be ready to go. The last year, we've been focusing on securing our offtake in Asia. We don't own gas. We don't own any upstream gas, so it's securing our supply, making sure our pipeline capacity is all in place. And we're getting to the point where all the pieces are there, and we'll be moving to more full-scale construction. Right now, we're actually cleaning up the site. For those of your listeners who don't know, we bought an old pulp mill site, which shut down in 2006. We took it over in about 2015. And we've got a lot to clean up there. There's 100 years of history on that site. Some of it good, some of it not so good. We've got to pull up piles and tear down buildings and all that sort of thing. So there's a fair bit of pre-work that needs to be done before we can get into the serious construction.
That's a huge commitment, though. I mean, you've and looking at it on a city perspective or even an area perspective. So you bought an old mill that's been down there that's been shut down for years. You're cleaning it up. You're renewing it, which, I mean, as we talk about natural gas and being such a clean clean energy and clean resource, both on this end as the upstream and as the downstream. I mean, that's a huge undertaking that you guys are going through. I see there you've got and there's a 40-year export license that you've got. So you've got your 40-year export license. You've got the facility. You're heavy underway to clean this up. Now I've read recently, and I mean it was literally as recent as the last couple of days, but the Canada Border Services Agency announced that they are looking at the LNG modules, the steel modules that are made to be exempted from the anti-dumping tariffs. How much does that impact your guys' project?
Well, it's critical. There's a lot of moving parts in these projects, right? You've got to ensure that you're not being overregulated and perhaps overtaxed. You've also got to have a really sharp pencil to keep your costs down. I mean, when these projects were all conceived, when we were going to have 20 of these projects back in 2013, price per MMBTU in Asia was $16.
Wow.
It went down to $5, right? And so that's why things have slowed down for a lot of us. But, things are back up to $8 to $10. But, as people, I'm sure in that part of the world understand the boom and bust of commodities, we've got to have sharp pencils and make sure we can run this thing when prices aren't great.
Yeah.
So on top of that, we've got to make sure that we're not being, essentially overregulated. And things like tariffs and anti-dumping, that impacts us because these modules, I'm telling you, they're the size of, they're 8,000, 10,000 tons. They're the size of buildings, the size of ships. They're built in massive shipyards, 50,000 people in places like Korea and China. And we need to bring these things in. We need to bring them in by water. You can't take them over land. So for us to have duties on something we can't acquire anywhere else, and significant steel duties, is a big cost to us. And when we're trying to manage this to the penny, again, we can't have public policy, and this affects everybody. We can't have public policy that screws our numbers up.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, I know on our side, on the upstream side, I know that very favorable as far as these being waived and making it easier for you guys to access this material and these products that you need for this project. And I mean, it's funny, you and I were talking a little bit before the show, and you're actually from this area. You're from the Fort St. John area.
Well, I was born in Castlegar in the Kootenays, but I moved it there when I was 2. So I was on Shorty Tompkins' farm
right?
when I was 2 years old.
Then I would say you're from Fort St. John.
And I'm related to lots of folks. My family's my mom is from there, so lots of aunts and uncles up there.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. What a small world. I didn't even know that.
Buried over in near Wanham, over by Spirit River there. So,
okay, yeah. So
I'm,
very
pretty
familiar.
connected to that neck of the woods.
That's phenomenal, and I like that. I like the fact that you're from Fort St. John. You understand oil and gas and industry and resources, and you've now made that your career and your passion on that end to see a project like this go through.
Well, and you grow up in those parts of the world, you get a sense of natural resources, right? Farming, mining, forestry, oil and gas, obviously, that part of the world. My first summer jobs were as a laborer on pipelines down by Beaver Lodge in south of Grand Prairie.
Yeah,
that's where I made my university money. So it's funny, it's kind of a big full circle back. I mean, I'm one of those kids who left and went and did other things. But the reason we build these projects, the reason we're trying to build LNG and diversify this economy, is that people can have good, sustainable jobs in those towns, and you don't have to move down to Vancouver, where your kids don't ever see a tree. You don't have to move down to Vancouver to make your living, right? And there's nothing wrong with Vancouver, but there's having grown up in those places. I mean, it's kind of nice to be able to make a living and stay in the towns you were born in. I
agree. And speaking of that, I mean, what I think a lot of people don't understand is they don't understand a project like your guys' is. And I mean, we've seen, I've read up on your numbers on how much you're going to be exporting and that, your $1.4 to $1.8 billion construction costs and 2.1 million tons of LNG per year for 40 years. What is 2.1 million tons of LNG equate to? If we were to do rough math, how much drilling has to happen in the northeast part of the province in order to meet the demands that you're going to need? Well,
we're at 2.1 million tons. We're considered a small project. In the, 2 billion isn't a small amount of money, but in the scale of LNG, it's small. We're about a ninth or a tenth of the size of what was proposed in Rupert by Pacific Northwest, or what LNG Canada is proposing in Kitimat. So we're not huge by that means. So the reality is, if we were the only LNG plant in British Columbia, there probably wouldn't have to be much new work done. we'd take existing supply, probably just get a better deal from it. We're having agreements with upstream Montney private producers because we don't own any gas. We're not like Shell or Petronas that has gas they have to monetize. They have to figure out how to make money off it. We're buying gas on the market from folks up there. So, we're not the size of our facility compared to those, it's probably not going to create a whole bunch of new work, but what it is, it's going to find a new market for a lot of that gas. I mean, it's going to take advantage of existing work and make sure it's not diminished, right? We're not probably going to cause an explosion of new drilling activity. We'll take advantage of what's there.
Yeah, and the way I look at it is, no, you're not going to create an explosion, but you're going to have a very long-term sustainable employment, and whether that's direct or indirect, I mean, that's still going to be a game changer.
Oh yeah, I mean 40-year export license, right? So we're going to be wanting to sell to Asia for 40 years, and we're going to be buying product from northern British Columbia, from the northeast there, for 40 years. That's going to keep a lot of guys working, right?
Oh, for sure it is. To me, that's huge.
And the thing is, again, as a smaller project, it's not the front page headline of some of the bigger projects, but we've got to, frankly, the province has to break this nut. We've got to get some of this gas offshore.
We do, yeah.
I'm as friendly to the Americans as anybody else, but listen, I don't care how friendly you are with your neighbor. If he's your only customer, you're in a bit of a bind.
Yeah.
We need to find another customer. I'm personally, as a British Columbian and a Canadian, a little tired that we sell our oil and gas at a discount. That's got to stop, right?
Yeah,
I'm sick and tired of it, frankly.
Yeah, it does. No, and you know what? And you make a very valid point, and I don't think a lot of people understand that the U.S. is our only customer, has been our only customer for as long as we've been drilling natural gas. And this enables us to have such a farther reach, which again will get us out of some of these cycles that we see. And the Fort St. John cycle. I mean, you're from here, and I'm born and raised here, and we know what that cycle is. And this is one of those tools that softens those hard cycles that we've been in every 7 to 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, we all know the commodity boom and bust. I mean, if you've been anywhere near the oil and gas, and my dad was a pipeliner as well, and I remember the '80s, right? As a kid, I remember the bulldozers and the excavators sitting on the auction yard. Things get tough real fast. If you've got more than one customer with different economies in different parts of the world, good chance that somebody's doing something somewhere that you can take advantage of that market. And China's a growing market. The Japanese are trying to move off nuclear, so they need an import. And there's tons of these smaller countries that are getting into this because they need to meet their GHG emission levels, and it's a good, stable, safe source for energy. Even if they're trying to get into renewables, it's firming their renewables. So you're seeing places like Thailand, even Indonesia. It used to be an export, considering it's an importer. Places we've never even thought of before, like the Philippines. They're looking at this, and if we can access these markets and be a secure and safe and reliable, that's important, reliable supplier, then it's going to be good for that, smoothing that boom bust cycle.
Beautiful. So we're going to take a quick commercial break right now. We'll be back with you here in about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what's going to be happening immediately. So stay with us, folks, and we'll be back with Byng just shortly after this.
This is a public notice from Yellowhead Road and Bridge. The Buick Creek Road will be closed to traffic in both directions starting Monday, July 16th for about 4 weeks. The closure will be in effect 24/7. Please watch for hauling truck traffic and obey all signs and traffic control personnel. That's the Buick Creek Road will be closed both directions starting Monday, July 16th for 4 weeks. Yellowhead Road and Bridge apologizes for any inconvenience.
Strong demand for cattle at BJV Dawson Creek. Cows up into the 90s, bulls as high as 120, and yearling prices continue to rise. If you have cattle to sell, please contact the market or your local field representative. Why take one person's opinion? Sell by public auction for optimum discovery and value.
One man in the heart of Fort St. John on a mission.
Jesse, that's been done before.
Oh, all right. In a faraway land.
Yeah, that's also been done. And you've just wasted like 15 seconds of your ad time. Just be normal.
Oh, okay. Hey, my name is Jesse Lambert, owner of JD Knives and Custom Works, Fort St. John's very own custom knife shop. We make leather goods, we offer sharpening services, and of course, make custom knives. Find us on Facebook and at jdknives.ca to find out more. Rated A for awesome.
Oh, for crying out loud!
It's all up to you.
You talking to me?
What should we play next? Call 250-787-2222 or text 250-800-2360. Brought to you by Wendy's.
A chocolate frosty or a vanilla frosty? That's one of summer's toughest questions. But when it's only 99 cents, why not try both? The 99-cent frosty, only at Wendy's.
The day is going to come along when you need a tow, or a boost, or help getting your keys back that you just locked in your truck. Been there. So you're going to need someone to call, and that someone should be Resilient Towing. Available 24/7, Resilient Towing can haul small cars, commercial vehicles, semis, buses, motorhomes, and heavy equipment. They can also help you with your battery boosting and lockouts. Resilient Towing, locally owned and serving the Peace region. Call 250-793-7139 or visit them online at resilienttransport.ca.
Everyone struggles with computers. New shortcuts, plug-and-play devices that don't play when you plug them, and more. Sit back and learn some stupid computer tricks with Vern from Computer Emporium across from the Northern Grand Hotel on 100th Avenue in Fort St. John.
Microsoft Office 2013. Office isn't so much a program as it is a suite of programs that you buy in one package. Today's Microsoft Office 2013, it really isn't that different than the versions of the past. There are, however, a few different levels of Microsoft Office to choose from. The most popular being the Home and Student version, which includes Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Home and Business includes Word, Excel, PowerPoint, plus Microsoft Outlook, the email program popular among business users. You can also purchase the fully loaded Microsoft Office Professional, which includes all of the above, plus Microsoft Access and Microsoft Publisher. These Office suites range from $149 for the Home and Student to $429 for the Professional version.
Stupid computer tricks with Vern from Computer Emporium, helping you use computers more efficiently. Is heard Monday to Saturday on Moose FM.
Hi, Vern here from Computer Emporium. Open an email or visit a site that seems to have slowed your computer down. Possibly you've got a nasty virus, and we've got a nice technician that can clean your system up and get you back surfing again. See the professionals at Computer Emporium, helping you use computers more efficiently.
At Complete Safety Services, they specialize in, you guessed it, safety. They provide field safety advisors and certified medics with fully equipped MTCs and trucks that are maintained to the highest standards. They can prepare companies for their COR certification, write safety programs, manage ISN and ComplyWorks. Not only that, but Complete Safety Services now offers traffic control, hotshotting, and pilot car services. Complete Safety Services, striving to ensure a safe and healthy working environment on 100th Street in Fort St. John and online at CompleteSafety.ca.
It's time for Fort St. John to relearn recycling. Changes have been made this month to the curbside recycling program, and soft plastics are no longer allowed inside your recycling bin. Instead, you can drop them off at the depot with your glass and styrofoam. Soft plastic bags include grocery bags, bread and produce bags, Ziploc bags, and dinner napkins. And if you need a second recycling or garbage cart, drop by the City Hall Finance counter. For full details on relearning recycling, visit fortstjohn.ca.
From the very young to the elderly, quality of life is directly linked to quality of health. At Peace Pharmacy, they are committed to this community, and you can always count on friendly, professional wellness advice. Peace Pharmacy, beside the ABC Medical Clinic on 101st Avenue.
Watch this show live on Facebook or download the podcast at Energeticcity.ca. This is Trev Talks with Trevor Bolin.
Thanks for joining us back. We are back with Byng as a little bit of a follow-up on Woodfibre LNG. We were talking a little bit off the air, Byng, about the just kind of the next steps. Now, I see on Monday you guys had posted on your Facebook page that you're looking to lease some land for transit and shuttle and bus to it. What I'm guessing is to bring construction workers to the site without, having traffic pollution everywhere.
Yeah, that's a good indication of how far we're getting. We're getting into the details now where we need, things that aren't yes/no decisions. We've got all our approvals. These are more how we actually do it. What's an interesting thing to do is that we've got to, with our site, is there's no road access. We're only accessed by water. So I've got to figure out a way to get all our people, the hundreds of employees at peak could be even greater, to that site in an efficient, productive manner. So I've got to find a place to park a number of buses so they can put them on a water taxi and get them over to site. It's an interesting site. It's great for many respects. It's a beautiful site. but it's also water-only access, so there's some logistical challenges.
I did not know that. So that's very interesting. So what do you, I mean, if you were to peg a timeline, just as we kind of wrap up with you, if you were to peg a timeline as to when you would hope the facility would be built, if things all went your way and of course were favorable, what kind of timeline are we looking at before you're, dipping into that 40-year export license?
Late 2022.
Late 2022. So which is not that far away considering the amount of construction you've got to do.
Yeah, it's a 4-year. It's about a 4-year cycle of construction. It could bleed a little. Some of it depends on permits. We've got our oil and gas facilities permit and leave to construct will probably come early next year. We'll be able to get hot and heavy into the serious construction. But at a certain point this year, if we sign our EPC agreement and we sign the agreements we need to with pipelines and with BC Hydro because we're running on electricity. Once those things are all signed, we're fully baked, and then it's just a question of the small-scale permits, some logistical issues like the one you just talked about, and making the orders for those modules, and then we're into a construction phase. So
I love it. Well, I mean, of course, you're speaking with the Energetic City, so we're very much in favor of your project, and we're very much in favor of seeing all of the projects come to life. But I think it's especially important to see companies like you guys that, as we said, aren't these great big conglomerates, but are helping to keep the market healthy.
Yeah, well, I just want to say one thing. Like we're in Squamish, right? We're down here near the Lower Mainland, on the way to Whistler. This is a part of the world where people don't have the context of the oil and gas sector. It's not something they see every day. It's not something they experience every day. So we face a lot more challenges, and so in many respects we've had to be stronger and a louder voice in communicating the importance of this industry in a place that's not always receptive. We all read the newspapers. The voices of the Northeast, Fort St. John for LNG, LNU, the voices of, whether it's Dawson Creek or Fort St. John or Fort Nelson, those people, like your listeners, need to speak out, or else in places like this, where there's a larger population, the importance of this and those voices can easily be lost. So, if I can appeal to your listeners, check out our Facebook page. Check out the Facebook pages of the other projects. Be supportive. Be loud. Because I tell you, when somebody's against you, they get loud pretty fast.
Agreed very much. So listeners, if you check out the Facebook page, Woodfibre LNG, it is a phenomenal page. You can stay right up to date as to what's going on. Byng, I thank you very much for being on the show and helping to fill in the listeners and anybody who's going to be watching us afterwards on the project, on how important it is, and everything that you guys are doing for the province of British Columbia.
Thanks a lot, Trevor, and have a great summer.
You too. Take care. Thanks.
You too.
So thank you very much to Byng for joining us. And seriously, if you're listening to the show right now, or whether it's live or whether it's later on in the day, check out their Facebook page. I actually, it's probably one of my favorite industry pages that I follow because as it happens, they're posting it, and it just gives you a really good idea on what this project is all about and how important it is. Coming up next, we've got Jayson Lowe, who's going to be joining us. He is an author of a book called The Banker's Secret Canadian Edition. He's actually even going to give away a book on the show today, so we can do that and have a bit of a contest. Yeah. Okay, and then so coming up, we have one commercial to do, and then we'll have Jayson on the line. Stay with us.
I'm here with Adrian Baker, CEO of Heart and Stroke in BC and Yukon, and we're talking about stroke. Adrian, what exactly is a stroke?
A stroke happens when blood stops flowing to any part of your brain, causing damage to brain cells. Unlike a heart attack, a stroke might cause little or no pain, but the after effects can be devastating.
Tell us about those after effects.
Well, they depend on the type of stroke, the part of the brain that was damaged, and the amount of damage. In Canada, 13,000 people die from stroke each year.
Are most of those people elderly?
Stroke can happen at any age, so it's important to know the signs. You can learn them by thinking fast. F for face, is it drooping? A for arms, can you raise both? S for speech, is it slurred or jumbled? T for time, to call 911 right away.
Learn the signs, act fast, and call 911. For more information, visit heartandstroke.ca/fast.
Join Rhythm Auctions on location at Gordon and Robert Olet's Farm Auction in Baldonnel, August 11th at 10:30 a.m. Come early to register and view the items up for auction. Rhythm Auctions is now accepting auction items into the yard in Presbyterian for the fall September 8th consignment sale. They're accepting vehicles, ATVs, RVs, farm equipment, general merchandise. Call 250-261-4198 to consign your equipment today. For more info, visit rhythmauctions.com.
Welcome back to the show. Quick commercial break. Of course, those are important because they keep shows like this on the air. So coming up, as I mentioned, we have Jayson Lowe. Jayson is actually on a lot of different shows right now, so we're glad he took time to meet with us today and talk to us today. Jayson, how are you doing?
I'm doing terrific, Trevor. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. So you and I were talking a little bit. You're from a small northern mining and forestry town, typical to what we live in here in Fort St. John. You've got a book out. You've spent the last couple of years, from what I've researched you a little bit, your best-selling book, The Banker's Secret, A Simple Guide to Creating Personal Wealth for Canadians. I like that because, so many of these books nowadays are American written, or they're, geared towards markets, but you understand small markets, you understand family needs, and you've put in a book. Tell us what the book is about.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And again, thank you for having me, and thank you to your listeners for tuning in. Much like you described, growing up in a small mining and forestry community, I still have obviously many deep connections to my hometown of Timmins, Ontario, and actually have a number of friends who lived and worked in Fort St. John for a number of years and owned businesses there. And what compelled us to write the book, The Banker's Secret, was helping people to recapture interest that they're paying to banks and to finance companies for all the major items that they need throughout their lifetime, things such as cars or major appliances, education, investment opportunities, business equipment, etc. And the book has nothing to do with, it's not about investments of any kind. It's all about how you go about financing the things in life, which can certainly include investments, but this is really about bringing money back to the family, bringing money back to the business, and not subjecting your money to, the stomach-churning volatility of, stock market manipulation, or subjecting your money to the risk of loss. This is all about keeping the money in the family, keeping the money in the business. And I've been practicing this process personally. I've been practicing this process with my clients. We're in our 11th year, and we have clients from coast to coast in the country. So the book has just taken off to incredible fanfare, and it's really an incredible honor to be serving so many people in such a positive way and helping them transform their financial futures, and doing so in a way that empowers them and gives them a sense of hope and, satisfaction financially, because so many people, as you know, they're just stressed out financially, and we help eliminate that stress by coaching people to implement this process of becoming your own banker, the infinite banking concept.
I think that's beautiful. And you mentioned that because, you mentioned the volatile markets or the risky markets. And I think back to, 2008, 2009. And the word then, as far as your investments a person's investments were going, is, don't look at the statements. Don't freak out when you open up that envelope, and that was I was touring on a book tour throughout the U.S. at that same time. I was down there for about 8 months, and it's the same sort of an idea. It's like, but here we are now, this many years later, and it's like, you look at what the Dow does, and you look at all these things, and there's all these components that, the president tweets out that, that a company is going to, have 10,000 new jobs in Michigan, and the Dow goes crazy, and people go crazy, and they don't understand that was caused by a tweet. There's so much more behind it, and I like the idea because you actually go farther into it, that you don't need to, the assumption that people have is you need to buy something and you finance with whatever that option is, but there's obviously other options.
Oh, Trevor, there's a far better way to go about doing it. And if your listeners were to sit down and just calculate the amount of interest that they've paid to banks, finance companies, credit card companies, etc., over the years, I'm certain that they would fall out of their chair and literally be astounded at the amount of money that's left their family and their business forever. And using this method that we educate people about in our book and that we educate people about in our full-day boot camps that we've been doing since January of 2010, we have 500 people a year that come through our educational boot camps. There's nothing to buy there except for reading material. So it's not like like you're going to some timeshare, sales pitch or anything like that. Yeah, like people have had enough of that nonsense, and that is not what we do. We deliver a great day of education, real examples on how this process is implemented. Our team all practice this process personally, and so it's important to work with a really good coach who understands how to do this. But this method can be utilized for example, if you have a number of business owners that are listening, and Trevor, you're a business owner much like myself. You have a number of business interests, and you can utilize this process to expand your business, to add equipment or technology that kind of puts you ahead of the competition. But you're doing this without having to put up personal guarantees, without having to fill out lengthy, nosy credit applications, without having to provide letters of credit, etc. So if you want to, as a business owner, and we all know that business owners are really taking it on the chin, especially as it relates to taxation. I mean, if you want to see a business owner spontaneously self-combust, bring up the tax topic.
No, and especially lately, and especially in the province of British Columbia, nobody likes to talk about the tax topic now.
Right, but you know what? The truth of the matter is that families and businesses are feeling it in their pocketbook. And if you have listeners who want to grow their retirement savings safely and predictably without any government restrictions, without penalties, without having anyone dictate how much income you can take and when you can take it, etc., then this book is a must-read. And like I shared with you prior to coming on the air, Trevor, as a favor to you and as a sincere thank you for inviting me onto your program, I am going to provide a copy of The Banker's Secret at no cost to any listener who wants to add this to their library. And so we can figure that out in terms of how to get that in their hands in the easiest way. If we want them to contact your station, or they're welcome to contact me directly, I have no problem providing my contact information. But I'm just happy as a favor to you to extend that as a token of my gratitude to you, and to be able to add some value to your listeners.
I love that. And the book looks fantastic. I haven't read it yet. You and I just kind of got on this topic here in the last few days, but I certainly have ordered one as well. So I love the fact that anybody who's listening right now, again, whether live or whether it's afterwards on Facebook Live or on Energetic City or YouTube, certainly reach out to me, get a copy of the book. What we'll maybe do is I'll just bring them into the studio, Jayson, and we can distribute them out from here for anybody who wants to get their hands on this. I love what you're doing. I love the concept of it. I think it's about time that somebody started to share some of these secrets, and there's a reason why the banks are these billion-dollar conglomerates and probably the wealthiest companies in the world. And maybe it's time to it's definitely time that people start putting that back in their pockets and not in somebody else's.
Oh, I agree with you completely. And people have become incredibly dependent upon commercial banks, and the fact of the matter is that you can take control of the banking function as it relates to your household and to your business. And in terms of when you think about hearing something new or something for the first time, and in your mind you're thinking, what's in it for me? How can this process work for me, for my household, my business, etc.? I mean, just imagine enjoying the peace of mind that that we do in my family and that my clients do, that comes from very steady, predictable, reliable, guaranteed value as it relates to this process day in and day out, and being able to bypass banks, to bypass finance and credit card companies altogether by becoming your own source of financing for vehicles, vacations, education, starting a business. If you're active in your community, maybe you enjoy contributing to your church or to a cause that is really important to you, being able to have that money available when you need it, and to have access to capital, and to not have to worry about all the inherent risks of what I call freeze-drying your money when you put your money into instruments like RRSPs and things of that nature. I mean, think about this, Trevor. If the government creates a problem, too much tax, like I've never sat down with a client who said, I really feel like I'm not being taxed enough.
Okay, they can tax me a little bit more.
So if the government creates a problem, onerous taxation, too much tax, and then turns around and grants you an exception to the problem they created by permitting you to put money into a registered retirement savings plan, aren't you just a little bit suspicious that you're being manipulated?
Yeah, very much.
If the government wanted to give us a break, all they would have to do is cut the taxes. Do you think they want to do that?
No, and is this what we get into in your book? Like, is this just a little bit of an idea?
Yeah, and through specific examples in the book, we talk about how to keep more money in the family, how to keep more money in the business, how to create wealth that is authentic, that has nothing to do with subjecting your money to the risk of loss. We know that we've seen so many people who have invested money in a variety of different things, and they're just hoping and praying they're going to get their investment back, let alone a return on it. And we are educating people that you do not have to do that to create wealth. This process is one of the oldest, safest, secure, and guaranteed methods, and it's been in existence in our country longer than you and I have been alive combined, Trevor. And the extremely wealthy have been using this process to keep their wealth from being squandered by fickle stock markets or government restrictions, and largely have kept that under wraps, from the masses. And back in 2008, when my business partner Glenn and I discovered this process, we began introducing it. And since then, it's blossomed into just this incredible wave of people who are sick and tired of handing control of their money over to someone else who thinks that they can do better with it than you. And in the book, you will get inspired. You will get very inspired by what's possible and, more importantly, what's real. And you don't have to subject your money to the risk of loss. We say, stop doing that. Take control of the most important financial function in your home or your business, and that's the banking function.
That's awesome. I love it. So, and I mean, everybody wants to keep more wealth, earn more wealth, pay less taxes. This weekend, I'm going to read your book. For any of our listeners, as you offered, you're going to get them a copy of your book, which we absolutely appreciate it and love it. It has been fantastic having you on the show. I'm excited. Just talking to you has got me excited. There's always ways to improve financially, and I think people, they know that. They just sometimes need a little bit of help. So if they don't want to wait until we can get them a book, they can, of course, buy your book online. But in the meantime, they can also check you out on Facebook. And loved having you on the show, Jayson. Thanks so much. And let's have a follow-up as soon as we can get some of these books out, too.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it, and thank you to your listeners for tuning in. And I look forward to meeting a number of you personally. And I always get fired up when I have the opportunity to empower people to see opportunities that they just didn't know existed before. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that today.
Agreed so much. Thanks for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Jayson Lowe, from author of A Banker's Secret Canadian Edition. Thanks, Jayson. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up another episode of the show. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next Friday for Trev Talks.
We're sorry.
There's nothing better than enjoying fresh produce all summer long. But what makes fresh produce even better? Fresh, local produce. The Fort St. John Farmers Market is open every Saturday in Centennial Park with a huge selection